Chairman, thank you so much for the chance to be here. I was there with you in person last year, and it's an honor to be before you today. I am the co-founder of the Convention of States Project and constitutional lawyer. I've argued in many courts, including the Supreme Court of the United States. I represented the state legislators from Washington State on an Article 5 matter relative to the ERA many, many decades ago now, and that case ended up in the Supreme Court of the United States. So I'm one of the few lawyers that actually litigated in the Article 5 area. The reason the founders gave us this form of the provision was a last-minute addition initiated by George Mason. He stood up at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787 and said, someday the federal government's going to abuse its power. When that day comes, if you only give Congress the authority to propose amendments, they'll never propose an amendment limiting their own power. And since the founders were absolutely committed to the idea that no one should have unchecked power, this provision was put into the Constitution without debate, without dissent. Everyone saw the absolute sense of what George Mason was saying, and they immediately adopted a provision in the current form of Article 5. There have been 450 applications for a convention of the states in the history of our country, but we've never reached the two-thirds majority on a particular topic. This resolution that's in front of you that I helped to draft, the operative language, I basically was the original draftsman of it, has been adopted in 19 states, and the language is verbatim in those states. It does not allow for the increase of federal power. It only allows for the decrease of federal power. Term limits on federal officials, fiscal restraints on federal officials in the federal government, and to limit the size and the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. Some of the abuses that we hear about in the last several days of spending $53 million for this and $150 million for that are coming to light now that Elon Musk and others have gotten access to some of this data, are staggering as to what's going on. But while these things can be fixed immediately, our resolution provides a structural limitations. So not only do we fix them this time, is that it can never occur again. And that's what we're trying to do, is to be able to make sure that the federal government puts the genie back in the bottle. The concern that's typically raised by people in states like Kansas is that there's a possibility, it's claimed, that the convention will run away and will not be limited to the power. There are numerous reasons that that's not true, but I'll focus on the primary reason. The primary reason is that the Supreme Court of the United States and other federal courts have made it clear through the ERA litigation that you can't change the rules in the middle of the stream in the constitutional process. The ERA was given 7 years for ratification. There have been 2 separate efforts to change the rules for that. And every court that has looked at that question says, no, you cannot change the rules in the middle of the stream. We've had 450 applications for a convention. We've never had an agreement because the topic is an absolute prerequisite. 2/3 of the states have to agree on the topics before you can have a convention. If 34 states call for a convention for the 3 topics listed in our resolution, that's it. You can't go on and discuss other topics. So things that would implicate the Bill of Rights, they're not topical. You cannot bring those up. And so just for an example, anything that's not listed, you cannot bring up lawfully. And there's binding court precedent that says that the rules can't be changed in the middle of the stream. Now, beyond that, even if that fails somehow, and I don't see how it possibly could fail, but even if it could fail somehow, still 38 states have to ratify. As difficult as it's been over the last 11 or 12 years to get 34 states to call for a convention of the states are very careful about this. The chances of us seeing something crazy come out of a convention and then get ratified by 38 states is just political fiction. People see bills introduced in legislatures all the time that people, they don't take seriously because there's not votes for such a proposition. There's not votes for the idea of some of the horror stories and the fear mongering that goes on here. It simply could not happen. And we allow the federal government to accumulate $36 trillion and counting in debt because the states have not been courageous enough to stop them from doing this. We need 34 states with the courage to stop this abuse of power, and we urge Kansas to become the 20th state in that process. Thank you.